She stood up, grabbed her purse, and walked out without a word. My brother just stared at me, slack-jawed, like he couldn't believe what had just happened. And me? I was still holding a stack of handmade flashcards, the last one trembling slightly in my fingers. It had a single, bold, black dot on it, a period. The card before that showed a red circle with a line through it. Before that, a sticker of a baby. And before that, a bride and groom, standing together in silhouette. The message was simple. The wedding is child-free. Period. But apparently, that wasn't simple enough for them. Let me take you back a bit. I'm getting married. My fiancé and I, we've been planning this for months, maybe years in our heads. We wanted a ceremony that reflected who we are. Elegant, streamlined, a little modern, and most importantly, adult only. No distractions, no toddlers melting down during vows, no kids darting between legs during the first dance, just a space for grown-ups to celebrate love, commitment, and new beginnings. And look, I love kids. We both do. But when it came to our wedding, we made one clear, respectful choice. No children. It wasn't a secret. We wrote it in the invitations, printed it on the website, and even mentioned it in casual conversation with our families. No kids. Not because we hate babies. Not because we're insensitive. But because we had a vision for our wedding, and it didn't include diaper bags or juice boxes. Everyone seemed to understand, except my brother Chris and his wife. They have a son, 3 years old. And to be fair, I get it. He's their world. Their rainbow baby, as they call him. The miracle after years of heartbreak, after pregnancy losses that shook their marriage and nearly broke them. I know what he represents to them. Life, hope, healing. But that doesn't change the fact that he's still a toddler. And our wedding is child-free. Chris was the first to bring it up. He called me a few weeks after the invitations went out. "Come on, man," he said. "You really expect us to leave him behind? After everything, you know he's a miracle baby. He's different. His presence will bring blessings to your wedding." Blessings? I paused, gave him the benefit of the doubt, and said, "Chris, I love your son, truly. But the rule is for everyone. It's not personal." He pushed again, this time with a kind of urgency I hadn't heard before. And soon, his wife started sending my fiancé baby pictures. Photos from when their son was just a few months old, eyes big and cheeks soft, dressed in pastel onesies and bundled in hospital blankets. I guess the idea was to melt our hearts. But to us, it felt like pressure, guilt, manipulation. We said no again, and again, and again. Each time, more firm, more direct. I explained it wasn't about their son, that it wouldn't be fair to other guests if we made an exception, that we weren't going to create a new rule for one child, miracle or not, because then the floodgates would open. But they didn't stop. It got to the point where every time they came over, the conversation circled back, like a loop I couldn't escape. So I prepared for the next visit. I sat down and made flashcards. Yes, actual flashcards. With stickers, with color-coded emphasis, one for each part of the message. The wedding. His child. Free. Period. It wasn't out of cruelty. It wasn't a joke. It was the last way I could think of to get through to them. When they brought it up again, right there in my living room, I didn't say a word. I reached for the stack, held up the first card, then the next, and the next, and the last. They blinked, stunned, confused. And that's when my sister-in-law stood up and walked out. Chris exploded. called me an asshole, said I disrespected their family, their son, their grief, said I made a mockery of them and humiliated them in their own brother's home. He stormed out after her, leaving me standing there, cards still in hand, the weight of a broken conversation hanging in the air. Later, my parents called, furious, said I had caused a rift, that I needed to apologize, that I'd mocked a sacred journey. Two people who had fought so hard to bring life into the world, that I owed them a fix. But what do you call their refusal to hear me the first 20 times? What do you call the photos, the pleas, the pressure? Where was the respect when they tried to override our wedding boundaries again and again? It's not about the child, it's about the choice, about setting a line and having it crossed repeatedly, about being told that your values don't matter because someone else's pain is louder. And I get it. Grief changes people. Parenthood reshapes your world. But their miracle baby doesn't exempt them from the rules we asked everyone else to follow. We've got cousins with newborns who made arrangements. Friends who RSVP'd no because they couldn't find sitters and still sent gifts with love and zero drama. Nobody else asked for an exception. Just Chris. Just his wife. Just their miracle baby. And now, they're telling the family that I humiliated them, that I turned their child into a punchline. But I never made a joke. I made a decision. And when they refused to listen, I made it again, with flashcards. So, am I the asshole? Because to me, it feels like I spent months saying no with grace, and finally had to say it with visuals. And even now, I'm the villain in their version of the story. Even now, I'm the one being asked to bend, to yield, to fix it. But isn't that just another way of saying, your no doesn't matter unless we like the tone it's said in? Isn't that just another version of not listening? Because love doesn't mean letting someone bulldoze your boundaries, especially not on the most important day of your life. That was one of the most unexpected, painfully funny, and emotionally layered wedding stories we've ever shared. And whether you've planned a wedding, drawn a boundary, or tried to say no in the face of emotional pressure, you probably felt that one deep in your bones. Here's the thing. Weddings aren't just celebrations. They're battlefields for expectations. Yours versus theirs. Family versus couple. Tradition versus autonomy. And in this case, two people clung to the identity of their child as a miracle so tightly, they missed the real miracle happening in front of them. A couple trying to protect the peace and clarity of their own beginning. Chris and his wife didn't just want to bring their son. They wanted their story to override yours. But your wedding isn't a stage for other people's redemptions. It's a threshold. And yes, maybe flashcards weren't the softest tool in the box, but they were honest. Sometimes, humor is the last refuge of sanity when every word has already been exhausted. So here's a question to you, listener. When someone refuses to take no for an answer, how many times do you owe them a yes? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you've ever had to defend a boundary at a moment that mattered most, you're not alone. Thanks for listening. This was AITA Story Vault.